Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Time Out Live and Falls present Moran Anthology, which is published today. Please put your phone into silent. You can take photographs if you like, and follow away on Twitter, #CatlinLive. We're going to have 60 minutes of chat and questions, then a signing. Without further ado, please welcome our host, Alex Hemmingsley and Catlin Moran.
We made several preparations before we came out here. One was that we brought a massive pile of napkins because we're both quite clumsy. So this is almost like bingo. Everybody gets 10 points every time we knock something over. I'll knock that over first. Okay. Probably when I start talking about socialism, I start gesticulating.
I haven't introduced you.
Sorry, I know. I was just doing some chat. It's okay, sorry. Sorry, I fucked up Henno's intro, sorry.
I didn't do an intro because I figured that if you'd bought a ticket, you knew who Catlin was and you kind of were in the vibe of Catlin. But I thought that we should all kind of start from the same place. So I've brought you 10 Catlin facts, just so that we can kind of have a feeling of togetherness before I go with the questions.
I don't know what these are, so I'm quite scared.
Pretending I'm
Henno knows me quite well.
Olympics.
I've told her many things I should not have told her.
Okay. Catlin Moran was born in Brighton in 1975, but grew up in Wolverhampton. She was homeschooled from the age of 11. She won Dylan's Readers' Contest at age 13 and got £250 worth of book tokens for her trouble, then won the Observer Young Writer of the Year aged 15. She moved to London aged 16 with a cake and began writing for Melody Maker. She is currently a columnist for The Times and writes 3 columns a week and holds the British Press Award as Interviewer and Critic of the Year, having been Columnist of the Year in 2010. Last year's book, How to Be a Woman, was published last summer and has now sold nearly 500,000 copies worldwide. She bombed on Newsnight, though, and just talked about clown porn. She owns a really fat cat with a really small head and she won't tell anyone its name. She's trying to get me to ship myself for literature, and her new book, Moran Anthology, is a collection of her work for The Times, and it's out today, which is why we're here. Hey.
Before we go all about me, I just want to explain why I'm trying to get Hemmo to literally shit herself for literature. She's writing the book that I'm looking forward to reading most next year. It's a book about how she runs. Basically, she's done the impossible thing of deciding to write a book, but about running marathons. So now not just having to write a book, she's having to run marathons constantly as well. And I said to her, which I don't think is an unfair point, that the aspect of running that most people are most interested in is when Paula Radcliffe did a poo in the gutter that time, and whether that's a regular thing and how you work that into training. And I asked her if she'd done a poo whilst running yet. She said no. I obviously judged her as a bit of a lightweight. And then I was like, well, if that doesn't happen, you could fake it. Maybe with Weetabix, you could just water it down and make... Weetabix is very good for making fake poos, and just run with it and see what that experience is like and write about it. And so far, that chapter's not been written.
Okay, I'm in charge now.
Yeah, sorry. Okay.
I just felt like I should let you just... And now we're going with my
I want you
plan.
to... That's the whole point of that chapter. I want you to...
Listen,
Sorry.
I got really specific instructions from Ebury that we are allowed to swear, but I have to make, when we move topic, very clear. Oh, right. Also, we're being live streamed.
I forgot about that. We're on the internet. Oh, my God, okay.
Hi, the internet.
Hi, the internet. Hello, the internet.
I think I've put my microphone on back.
This is amazing. It's fine. I can hear you, babe. You look hot.
Okay, so we've got 3 proper questions about each of the grown-up topics, which are being a writer, feminism, and Twitter.
Excellent. I love that we both think Twitter's a grown-up topic.
Then we're going to, because Catlin started as a music journalist, and the last standby of everyone who's interviewing someone who's been asked everything before is, oh no, not the biscuit tin!
Yes.
So we're going to do that later.
In smash hits in the 80s, they would have pop stars and they would come and pick out random questions from the biscuit tin.
So we're doing the grown-up questions first.
Yes. Okay, I'm ready for that. But I just want to say that this biscuit tin, sorry, I will literally answer some questions in a minute, but when I said we're doing the biscuit tin, we're reviving it from the 80s and from smash hits, I was like, we need to update it to the present day to be more relevant to me. So could we not get a biscuit tin that looks like a vagina that I could pull the questions out of one by one?
I looked
and this
everywhere.
is what she brought.
I went through all of the second-hand places in the lanes in Brighton, nothing. Then I went to all the sex shops in Brighton, asking for a biscuit tin that looked like a vagina, which I thought could be solved in Brighton.
Yes.
And then I went to Marks and
There's
Spencer's.
some entrepreneurial lesbians.
It's the trajectory of most relationships. Catelyn. You loved Stephen Fry's Paperweight as a child.
I did. Oh, with questions. Okay, right.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Okay, cool.
So was doing this book your idea, or could you not be bothered to do another one from scratch? Did you dream of doing this book, or did you get a 2-book contract that you couldn't negotiate your way out of?
Well, it's one of those questions that, like, is
You
about,
said
like,
I could
the
ask
shape of the
anything.
universe. No, originally, this is all I wanted to do. All I wanted to, because Janice Turner, who's here, columnist at the Times, I hope she is, because I gave her a ticket, we were just having a conversation on Twitter. Hey, Janice. Janice is great. And she just went, you should have a compilation of your columns out. And I went, yes, I should have a compilation of my columns out. This was 4 years ago. And so I went and got an agent, and they were like, well, yes, we can definitely get you a compilation of your columns out together. That'd be fine. But have you got any other ideas for books? And I went, well, I have always wanted to completely revolutionise the world with a book about feminism, in which I discuss masturbation and my own vagina and menstruation. And she was like, yeah, well, then do
You
that.
left that bloody shitting.
Yeah, and I didn't do the shitting chapter because I've left that one to you, darling. So this is originally what I wanted to do. I just wanted to do Moranthology, and I just ended up writing a book about feminism by accident.
So do you prefer writing columns?
To what? To books?
To doing a whole book. Is it easier when you know it's like a chunk, it's just a thing, and you can just like wrap it up in a day?
It's quite nice to just sort of like, it feels like a pop song when you do it. You're kind of like, I'm just going to go in there and just kind of like go in and cane the verse 3 times, then into the chorus and go home again. There's something very pleasant about trying to, because you're trying to make the idea as simple as possible. It's very easy to just go off and randomly wander through millions of things, but to make it that simple and to try and tell it in jokes as well, to try and make a point, not by kind of going, I'm sitting at my writing bureau and I'm going to make some serious points, but to just come in and gag it all up, and by the end you're like kind of, actually, there was an inadvertent wisdom halfway through that column that I enjoyed.
Do you have like a writing sweet spot? Is there like a kind of moment when you know you've done a good column, or do you just file them all and think, oh, please, can I have got away with it?
I know the good ones because I always want to read them back as soon as I've written them. It's just kind of like, I'm just kind of like, sometimes you just finish and you're like, yep, okay, I've sent that one, I won't be reading that one again. But the good ones, you kind of, as soon as you sent it, you kind of like, I just go into my sent box and read it again and go, oh, that was quite good.
But is that what everyone else thinks? Is that just like good times in your kitchen, or are the ones that you read again the ones that loads of people respond to?
No, I can always tell. There was one that I wrote recently where I made myself cry, and I was quite moved by how moved I was, and it just got to a point where just sitting there in the kitchen going, I'm moving myself now. I am. This is meta movement. This is quite good, yes. But having a book is amazing because you can just waft on forever. When I first sat down to start writing...
you can only do that in books. Oh shit, I didn't set the timer.
We didn't set the timer.
How long? Okay, 10
Quick,
minutes,
iPhone.
do you think?
Make the quacking sound. We've got 40 minutes to talk, then it should go quack, quack, quack.
Okay, I'm changing
While
it
she's
to
doing the
30.
admin, the whole thing about, writing a book, was the first day that I sat down to write How to Be a Woman, it was like, oh my God, this can be more than 800 words long, which is what I usually write in the Times, or 1,500 words long. And I just got so high off the fact that I could just crap on for a very long time, that propelled me through writing the entire book in 5 months flat.
Tell me about interviewing.
Yes.
I need help. But a lot in the Moranthology is interviews. It's one of your bits.
Yes.
Are there any...
It's a string to my 3-stringed bow, yes.
Are there any that you would like to go back and do again? Either because they were so good that you want to be kind of living it without having to worry about the copy, or because you fucked them up.
There was the biggest mistake I've ever made in an interview was when I was interviewing Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins, and I'm reasonably fond of the band, and he was just a person that I had no feelings for either way. And
put us in an era. Are you tiny Catelyn? Are you married Catelyn?
I was pretty big Catelyn at that point. I was kind of. It was a massive cheese era. I think it was the skunkweed and Soleros era, and that was it was a fine time to be alive as a woman that time. I can't remember what it was. I think it was sort of just post-grunge. I think it was kind of around about the time that Radiohead was starting their ascendancy, 97.
Right. Okay, we're there.
So that's where we are. That's the scene. No, the scene is set, and I'm wearing a hat. That was pretty much a constant until about until I started giving birth, and then I realised how impractical it is to wear a hat in a Labour ward. They don't like that. And anyway, so interviewed Billy Corgan, and I'd interviewed Courtney Love sometime before, and I don't know who knows the story about how I kind of accidentally a bit killed Kurt Cobain totally.
It's in the book, isn't it?
No, it's not in the book. Oh. Yeah, I couldn't find that file on my hard drive. the story about how I killed Kurt Cobain, it has
that.
disappeared from my hard drive, so I didn't put it in the book. But it's basically that. I interviewed Courtney Love in 1990, well, before Kurt died, and during a very long interview that went on for about 17 hours, and where she told me everything, including describing what it was like the first time Kurt took E. You know, he was staring at these twigs. It's an amazing thing to do on ecstasy. And gave me the address of their heroin dealer and tried to set me up with their nanny. One of the facts she said was that Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins, her former boyfriend, was a very good lay. And I left out lots of other details from this story, but I put in this detail because I thought it was quite interesting, and it published. And then a week after publication, Kurt Cobain shot himself and died. That was when he died. That was that suicide thing. And I was a bit upset. And then someone who was a very good friend of theirs rang up and went, well, you know, it was your fault. I was like, well, how so, why so? I'm simply living in Hampstead and smoking a bifter. I don't think I had anything to do with this. And they went, in those days, apparently, in rehab, the music press was delivered every week. I suspect it may be a policy they've changed now. And I'm so sad and suicidal. Can't wait to read Uncut magazine. I don't think they do that anymore. And so he'd read this interview with Courtney Love and had seen that she'd said that Billy Corgan was a great lay and had become very angry and skipped over the walls of rehab and shot himself because, unbeknownst to me, the big rumour had been that she'd been having an affair with Billy while he was in rehab. So this was how I accidentally killed Kurt Cobain. But, you know, he was quite upset before. I mean,
He wasn't lols. He was not lols.
It was, exactly.
He had ruffle issues.
He was not the Rufflemeister. He was not Ruffle Harris by any stretch of the imagination at that point. He'd already posed with a gun in his mouth, and he was going to call that album I Hate Myself and I Want to Die. So I reckon, technically, I'm fairly blameless in that situation.
On track.
Anyway, so then a couple of years later, I'm interviewing Billy Corgan. These stories they always come back round. The stories go all the way. It's like a boomerang. I start the story, and it goes all the way around the auditorium. You're going, is she going to come back to her original point? The answer is yes.